Okay, my name is Colby Jackson. I'm back again on Redcliffe Research, and today we have Grant Johnson with us with GMBL. Grant, can you tell us who you are and what your company does?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Colby. I'm the CEO and founder of Esports Entertainment Group. We trade on the NASDAQ under the symbol GMBL for Gamble. We run a number of wagering sites. In Europe, we carry the brands BetHard, Lucky Dino, Sport Nation, and Buy.bet. Those are all consumer-facing wagering brands that cover esports, sportsbook, and traditional casino. We have licenses in Ireland, the UK GC, Malta. We've had our license application accepted here in New Jersey. And we are just waiting final regulatory approval for the licenses to transfer to our name in Sweden and Spain. So we'll have six. In addition to that, we have a number of specific esports assets, Helix, EGL, and GG Circuit. EGL, if you can see over my shoulder here, is the consumer-facing tournament platform that we've been partnering with the pro teams in North America specifically, but also, as you see, Arsenal and some other teams in the Premiership offering tournaments for the fans. GG Circuit is probably widely regarded as the gold standard in enterprise software that runs esports centers. In the United States, there's I think over 600 facilities that run off of GG Circuit. Globally, it's about 1,000, including some universities, etc. And then Helix runs two of the biggest gaming centers in North America, one in North Bergen and one attached to Patriot Place. And it's that center at Patriot Place that we've used as our, we'll call it a blueprint of what we wish to do with the other pro teams. And the other pro teams, so far in the conversations, they want that. So that's a bit of a mix of what we are, what we do, and the types of assets that we have.
That's cool. That's perfect. So our community as a whole is really bullish on esports. We've talked about it a lot. And today you had a pretty cool announcement. You're officially partners with the LA Chargers, and you're going to be their esports provider. And you do it for a number of pro sports teams. That's how I first became interested in your company. Can you talk about how these partnerships are structured? And do you think this is going to be like a big revenue thing for you, or is this a way to get new people interested in your different products and stuff?
Well, actually, both. Yes, we do believe it's going to be accretive. It's going to be a revenue driver. When we look at our strategy coming into the United States, you're looking at some very big spending competitors, that are in the space, and it occurred to me that the best partners that we could possibly have would be the premium sports brands. They have millions, in some cases tens of millions of fans, and those fans are generational. And esports and sports, it's entertainment. And if one positive thing out of COVID, and there weren't many that came out of COVID, but one positive thing was that it brought esports into the mainstream media, no question. Esports was broadcast on network TV, the 2K League, because there was no sports on. But also what happened with these traditional sports teams, they recognized that their fans are gamers and their players are gamers. So what we're doing here with these teams is we provide our platform, EGL. We enter into a relationship with the team. The team is the marketing partner. So in the case of the Chargers, they have 9 million fans in their database. They market to their 9 million fans, to their social media channels. And you'll see some of the videos probably just gone out in the last 10 minutes from the Chargers organization about their players, actually gaming. And oddly enough, they're playing 2K in the video, but that just happens to be the game that those particular players play. And they market that out through their social channels, through their Twitter accounts and emails for their fans to sign up on our platform to play in these tournaments. And the prizes in these tournaments are swag of the team. Season tickets, signed helmets, jerseys, come to the owner's box to watch a game. Things that you can't normally buy, you have to win these things. And so it's really, we're the technical partner, they're the marketing partner. The fans sign up, We get the sponsorship revenue that comes because obviously the brands want to market. We manage most of the endemic ones, Lenovo, Alienware, ones that are HyperX equated with esports, etc. And the teams have a lot of the consumer brands, McDonald's, Anheuser, Citibank, etc. And so the sponsors pay us, and the fans pay us. So we're probably going to offer the first event at no charge, just to get some real excitement from the fans to come in for the experience, proof of concept, if you would, and then build up that database. So really, it is an economic driver for us. It's a revenue driver, but it's also really embeds us deeply into the fabric of these teams. Because part two of that conversation, as we were talking a little bit earlier, is to build gaming centers close to or attached to the physical stadiums. Because then the teams are looking at esports as a way to keep engaged, or not just esports, but all video gaming, keep engaged with their fan base in the off season. And they're actually looking at it as a future potential recruiting tool for future fans, because fans under 30 spend more time gaming than watching pro sports. And the teams recognize that, and they want to be a brand that is friendly to gaming, so that you got your 17, 18, 19-year-old gamers. They're going to the Chargers gaming center. That's the Chargers have sponsored gaming. They're friendly to the Chargers, so maybe they'll go watch a Chargers game or buy some Chargers flags. So they're thinking about it both ways. Now it's something for the current fans and as a recruiting tool for future fans. It's a good formula.
And I think you're right on the money there. A lot of our research has shown there's a huge overlap between the two groups, and it's a huge target audience you can recruit there to the rest of your products. Have you actually had any of these events go live yet, or has COVID stopped that?
Well, yeah, COVID was a bit problematic, especially when it came to having final events, because we did have one with Philly Union. They had the final event down at the stadium, but there was really nobody in the stadium except for a few players playing in the event. So we have had three. We just sort of three test events. We're going to be making a big push kicking off this September. In fact, kind of in lockstep with the launch of the NFL season. And as each week progresses, we expect more and more tournaments, because one of the exciting things for the fans, the players, when you sign up, let's say you're a Chargers fan, you sign up, the first time you go in, you play, maybe you win, maybe you don't, you have a positive experience. Next time you come back for the second event, let's say it's going to be, we're looking at about a $6 subscription fee. So you sign up. When you sign up, you can play in all the teams' events. So you can play in Eagles events, LA Kings, Cavaliers, Philly Union, Patriots, etc. So it's a lot of swag out there, a lot of trips, and just a lot of competition, because as you know, gamers, they want to game, they want to compete.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing, and I'm sure you're aware, but a lot of pro athletes actually stream and play video games on their own, so you might even see some of them jumping in some of those tournaments. So the next thing I want to talk about is the gambling part of your business. So 20.1 million people said they were planning to bet on this year's Olympics, with only like half the states in the U.S. are allowed to sports bet. So that's a huge jump from the last 4 years. Where do you think these laws are going? And do you see any trends on the ground that we should be aware of here at Redcliffe?
Yeah, I think that it's fair to say since, I guess, the spring of 2018, when the Supreme Court ruled that the states could put their own regulatory framework in place for sports wagering, there's been a little bit of a gold rush from then until now. At the time, there was Jersey and Nevada doing some online poker, very little else. Now, I believe we're sitting north of 16 states that have a regulatory framework in place. My sources tell me we can expect that number to continue growing at that rate. I wouldn't be surprised if this time next year we're into the mid-20s in terms of states that have regulatory framework. I know we're in conversations with multiple states. So I think that is a trend that's going to continue. COVID, again, The negative part of COVID was it caused a lot of economic disruption. As is true with individuals, the same is true with state coffers. And they're looking. The regulatory bodies are looking at gaming, gambling as a regulated tax situation. And frankly, people like to gamble. We know that that's a real thing. They're better off getting out in front of it and regulating it, and having keep the bad actors out. Have companies that are going to pay taxes, and the state can monitor if there's problem gaming, etc. Because right now, all U.S. esports wagering is all black market. It is millions is taking place, but it's all offshore. In fact, when we go live in New Jersey, we knock on wood, late this August, we will be the first North American esports wagering site licensed. So we're fingers crossed. We're pretty pumped about that.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up later, but this is a perfect segue. But right now, I don't know if you're aware, but gambling is really popular on Twitch. And influencers are getting paid to promote sites, and they're not regulated, and they're all offshore. So we might see some regulation, which would probably help you guys push more people to regulated gambling sites in the U.S. anyway.
Yes, we're a public company, so by virtue of that, we're fans of the regulatory framework because that's the world we live in. So yeah, we would like to see, and don't get me wrong, not that I relish the concept of having more taxes and more regulation, but as I said, because we are public, it stands to reason that we would support a regulatory framework. As I said, the states are better off, taxing, getting in front of regulating taxing. So, if you're dealing with an offshore site, you don't know who's operating it. You don't know who's controlling your money. You don't know who has access to your bank accounts and credit cards. You don't know if you're going to get paid. And they're certainly not going to stop you if you've got a problem with gambling. You keep putting more and more money into it. In a regulated market, there's all kinds of red flags that get set off. You have to make sure that you can gamble in the jurisdiction you're in. You are of age. If you start to see problem activity with the way you're gambling, you start chasing your losses, the gaming commission will step in. And that's fine. We think that that's a good thing because we don't want anybody to go bankrupt by gambling. Yeah. Gambling is fun if it's done properly. So it's going to grow, and we're big fans of a regulated market.
I think that's going to benefit you guys greatly, and it shows that people do like to gamble, and it's very popular in the U.S. where it's regulated. So yes. I was looking over what you've done in your career, and I noticed that you worked in gambling before in the past, and I saw that you were responsible at your old company for 23 different gambling software licenses. How do you think your past experience in the gambling industry helps you at EEG, and do you think that gives you an advantage over some of your competitors?
To a certain extent, yes. What we're experiencing here in esports is a little bit of what happened back in the mid-'90s when gambling went online for the first time. 1995, I think, was the first site that went up. When we took our first transaction, 96 was the first e-commerce transaction taken in Canada. So there's a similar pattern to what took place then. It was a little bit of a mad dash. And there's a bit of that taking place again. I think where it helps me and where it's evidence to some of the transactions we've done, when we acquired Bet Hard and Lucky Dino, when we get a lot of first looks, because a lot of the people that are in the business are the same people that started the business back in those times. They're looking either to exit or they recognize, that I was involved back in the day. And we get a lot of first looks. I know who all the brokers are. If you look at the Lucky Dino Bet Hard transaction, Lucky Dino is an excellent one. We ended up doing that transaction for $30 million for $5 million EBITDA. So basically 6 times multiple on EBITDA. There was a similar transaction done by GAN last fall for about the same size company. They paid 6 times revenue. So they paid, or 6 times revenue, they paid $150 million for the same size company. So I think some of that inexperience hurt them, or their shareholders. For the other side of the coin is that experience. I've been there before. I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the operators that we put online back all those many years ago are still operating. So I can reach out and get some feedback from people. So that's helpful as well. So yeah, it's a strategic advantage. Now, just to be candid, clearly I'm not your typical esports individual. I would fall into that gray gamer category for sure. But the reality is, people of all ages like the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a simple fact. Now, the majority are definitely 20 to 35 years old. So all the guys on our esports gaming team, they're all younger. I'm more on the capital market side.
Mm-hmm.
The bankers want to see the gray hair or lack of hair. The gamers want to see guys like you go. They want to see the young, fresh faces.
Well, I think you got the gaming side covered too. I preparing for this interview, I watched the GG Circuit, the founder of that company, talk on a town hall, and he seems very passionate, and he seems like he's pretty entwined with the industry. So I think you have some people helping you out on that side of it.
We've got some awesome. I would put our esports people. You've got Ken Silva, formerly the founder of Esports Canada with Overactive Media, ESL. Magnus Lepanyemi, formerly with DreamHack. You've got the Vanderbilt boys, who co-founded Helix, Zach Johnson, and Chris McGee, the founders of GG Circuit. The list goes on. William Collis, he literally wrote the book of esports. Mm-hmm. William the Professor Collis. So the DNA in esports is second to none. And several of our members of our team previously were pro team owners. So those are, we feel very confident in the skill set and the level of passion and knowledge in esports that they bring to our team.
That's a big thing we look at Redcliffe, just the whole ecosystem, how passionate they are about what they're working on, and how entwined they are with the industry, and that checked the boxes for us when looking at your company. I want to talk about LandDuel really quick. So when I actually went to Vegas recently, and I remember walking around the casinos, and I felt I'm obviously younger, and I felt like the slot machines didn't really connect to me, and I always was wondering why are there no games of skill in a casino? And I know you've talked about that many times in some of your interviews about potentially putting LandDuel products and having video games in casinos. How do you think that will play out over the next few years, and do you think that's actually a possibility?
100%. In fact, you mentioned you came back from Vegas. I was at the IGEA conference, the NIGA conference with IGEA. Now, NIGA is the National Indian Gaming Association, which represents 50% of the U.S. casino market. I believe there's 455 native gaming tribes. So that represents $17.5 billion of casino traffic. And the LandDuel product had, when we rolled that out this fall in Atlantic City, in a casino, to be named shortly, that will be the missing piece for the casino operators. And they all want to bring esports in. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows what happened over there at Luxor. It's a very cool facility, the HyperX facility, but none of the casinos want to have a venue that's busy one day a month. Mm-hmm. That's too much real estate. They want perpetual revenue generation. And, so they know what and I hate to throw shade on the Allied guys, because it is a cool facility. It just, they didn't have the feeder system to go into that facility. And to your point, if you look on a casino floor, most of those slot machines are dormant most of the time, mm-hmm. right? I mean, the only games of skill are really poker, frankly. Maybe mm-hmm. you can make it some claim on craps and blackjack, but really it's poker. That's game of skill, which does cross over with gamers. A lot of gamers are poker players. But slot machines just don't attract a younger audience. The only time you really play one is you're waiting for your buddy down the lobby. You might throw a buck in a machine while you're waiting for your drink to be over, kind of thing. Yeah. So with LandDuel, that's me playing you. We're going to play the game. We're going to launch is Madden, but once we launch Madden, we plan to add more titles very quickly. We're going to play Madden. We're going to play 2K, Valorant, Fortnite. Doesn't matter. We're going to play Mario Karts. We're going to play. We're going to bet $2, $5, $10 a match. Winner takes the purse. House is going to take a commission. Like in a poker room, the house takes a rig from the pot. So the house will say, let's take 10%. So that now makes this a betting tool. That's interesting to casinos. Plus, we have Vi, so we can bring esports into the sports book. But this is now, instead of having an arcade, they now have a betting product. People are in there, they're gaming against each other, they're having their food and bev, they're staying at the hotel. And in a licensed facility, later this year or early next year, we're going to add in a second feature to that. So I'm playing you, Colby, we're playing Fortnite, and people could bet on our match in the casinos. They could bet on amateur play in a licensed facility. That'll be the second, sort of 2.1 version of the software that'll come out. That is the product we're talking to casinos. That's the product that casinos are interested in. Mm-hmm. There will be a lot of casinos at that event this fall, and you probably saw that we're one of the sponsors of the Northeast Casino Conference. That will have over 60 casino operators at that event. Sports Illustrated will be there, Spectrum Capital, Cooper Levinson, which is one of the big gambling firms, and us, the only esports company, will be presenting that product to the casinos. We think it'll be a huge growth area. One other thing that's relevant here is you probably saw in our releases, we have a cryptocurrency software piece. So when nobody's using these gaming computers, as you know, these are high performance, high processor speed computers, they will start mining cryptocurrencies. Now, they don't mine Bitcoin, but mostly Ethereum is what we mine. But unlike a slot machine, when nobody's using it, it's just sucking up energy, sitting there with all those lights going. Mm-hmm. These gaming rigs, when they're not being used, they just start mining currency. So these things generate revenue 24/7.
Yeah, I did see that. It's pretty cool. And I think it kind of shows how opportunistic you guys are. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't have thought about that. They would have just been like, oh, we're going to try to get as many people in as possible. But you have the computing power. It makes sense. And I heard the GG Circuit people talk that crypto isn't the only thing you can do with that computing power. There's a lot of things, options people can do who own those facilities if they don't want to be involved in crypto. And I think that's super cool. And Kenny, our founder, actually, he did a deep dive on skills the other day. And one of the things he said was that he really wished, instead of the random games that people were playing on their phone, that they could be games like Madden and games that people actually wanted to play. So I thought that was super cool, and I found out you guys were doing that.
Well, the reason they don't is they didn't want to they want to work in licensing for them, and that's fine. And they've done a good job. There's no denying what they've got. But I agree with you 100%. Why not use the games that people already want to play? We just, EA will be at that event. Mm-hmm. They're going to be monitoring. So we work very closely with the publishers.
So yeah, that was actually my next question. So we've in our due diligence on the space, we've noticed how much power the developers have on how the distribution of their games and stuff, and it's made it really hard to invest in the space. But I've read that you guys have you have good relationships with them. Can you explain what that entails? And are you worried that in the future they could develop their own product like this and pull your rights? Or
well, my crystal ball doesn't work any better than anybody else's. Would they? Could they? Maybe. It's not their core business. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to change direction for any kind of a company in any sector. It's probably more likely that, and this is just my opinion, that you'll see publishers being very picky as to who they will work with when it comes to gambling. I think when they go down that checklist, they're going to make sure that the transparency, they're going to know who they're dealing with. Are they credible? Who are these guys? We've sort of positioned ourselves to be logical partners for them, public and having tier 1 licenses. To get into the question of a product like LandDuel, yeah, I think it's really going to be, do they want to pivot and get away from game development? Because I think they're really looking for the next Fortnite. Mm-hmm. They're looking to put that next game out. They're going to get 100 million players instead of, okay, what else can we offer these people? Let's try a new product. I don't know I don't know what the conversations are at their board level, but I can say for certain, several people on our team, William, for example, William Collis, sits on 2 board of advisors, 2 publishers. It's very close to them. Ken, having worked at ESL, and Magnus at DreamHack, have worked with all the publishers extensively on hosting major events. So the relationships we have are good. We don't have any indication from any of the publishers that they're going to make that pivot. It doesn't mean that down the road they wouldn't. At the same time, there's nothing that says down the road that somebody else is going to come in and build a new type of publisher and come up with a new kind of game.
Yeah.
So that one thing we count on 100% is change. There'll be change. We don't like the way things are. Don't worry, it's going to change. We think more likely pivot is that they will start accepting gambling. They'll just be very picky with who they partner with. You've seen some companies have partnered with groups that are offshore operators, and it's got them in some hot water because the regulatory bodies, specifically in the United States, they're not having that. That's not good. You're not going to see it going off with random, not to throw shade on Russia, but it's not going to really, it's not going to pass muster to do a transaction with a Russian-based operator. That said, we continue to have the open conversations. The best way to keep the relationships friendly is to keep them very involved. So we communicate with them all the time. John used to work at Blizzard. Randy was a designer at EA. As mentioned, William sits on 2 board of advisors. So, we keep those conversations open, and anytime they give us a call or want something from us, you can believe that we respond.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I think personally, I think it's more likely they pivot more towards creating leagues, which would benefit you guys anyway. So,
100%.
Yeah, that's what I think was more likely. I just wanted to see what your take was on that. And then next, GG Circuit. That's a super cool part of the business for me. And if the viewers did not know, they provide gaming infrastructure and cloud services for a number of people. But the thing I'm looking at, I'm a college student. I go to the University of Oregon, and esports has become pretty big on campus. And I know some of my friends have said the same thing at their schools. And I know GG Circuit does that for, I think, like 45 colleges or something.
I think it's 60 now, but yeah, it's a large number.
How big of an opportunity do you think the college esports market is for your company?
It's huge. It's the future, right? I mean, and it goes even further back to the high schools. The high school is going to feed the colleges. The colleges now have intercollegiate teams. 5 years ago, you could probably count on the fingers of one hand the number of intercollegiate teams. Now there's 200 between Canada and the United States that have some sort of an esport program, most of which are scholarships. That didn't exist. So that's a huge growth area. And that is going to feed the talent that moves into the pro leagues. That's where their future shoutcasters, team managers, team owners, they're all going to come from that graduating class, future compliance officers, etc. Some of the universities are adding, esports curriculum, not just, from their intercollegiate side, but as part of the scholastic. I know Stockton University 100% is in Jersey. They're forming an innovation center. We know there's some similar conversations going on in Florida, Nevada, and Ohio. So it's here to stay, and more the better. I will say the gaming commissions are a little bit jittery about intercollegiate and they've asked us specifically not to accept wagering on intercollegiate just yet until they get comfortable with it. That's fine. We've got time. We're not in this for 12 months or 1 year. We're in this for the long haul. So if that's the regulatory framework wants, fine. We'll just deal with the pro teams, and the older players and the FanDuel, etc. When they're comfortable to add sort of, we'll call it the NCAA of esports, we'll add it at that time. But it's definitely a huge growth area.
It's a pretty cool thing for me, just seeing it play out while I'm at school. And I think it's a huge market, and it's a really good market for you guys to be in. And one of the other things we looked at when we were researching esports in general is we looked at South Korea, and that same thing kind of played out before it blew up in South Korea. They added stuff in colleges, and then they created a real career path. Streaming and esports became an accepted career path, and that's when it really blew up. And I think that's kind of where we are in the U.S. right now. So I think in like few years, it could be realistically accepted career path for many people my age.
100%. I think it's the number one sport in Korea. It is esports. It is the epicenter of it, of course. On our board of directors, Alex Lim, who was the Secretary General of the IESF. He's on our board of directors. He was actually on the original negotiating team talking to the IOC about bringing esports into the Olympics. So I agree with you completely. They're probably a decade ahead, of where we are here in the West. But that timeline is there's a lot of the rate of change is much more rapid now than it was when it comes to obviously gaming and esports. So I agree, it's going to become a part of every university sports team. It is going into the Olympics. It's going to be at the Paris Olympics, and which makes perfectly good sense to me and obviously to you. Certainly more so than pistol shooting. Right? But anyhow, no sense throwing shade on anybody else. But it is hundreds of millions of billions of people are fans. So why wouldn't you have it in an entertainment venue like that? But it's going to be huge. There's we will probably see. I wouldn't be surprised if we're building a facility a month by January. Just a new gaming center, whether it's with a university or a pro team or an amusement park or the Hall of Fame villages. I think it'll be, and that's just us. And of course, there's other companies. Simplicity is a good company. They're clients of ours. Amuka, GameWorks. These are all clients of our GG Circuits. They're all clients of GG Circuits. They'll be adding to that. And if you take a look at baseball or football, there's not a town in the United States that doesn't have either a baseball field or football field, and probably both. So that goes to show you what the potential growth is for esports venues in the United States and North America at large. And I think there's room for thousands of centers, and it's going to happen. And we're going to be part of that. We're going to be integral in that, building that ecosystem.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that there. I think there's a huge opportunity in this space. And I think you guys are right at the center of it. And that's why we're talking to you right now. We think you're doing a lot of really good things. So one of the things that our viewers and our community would want to know is we noticed you've been growing through M&A. That's been kind of your main focus. What criteria do you have for an acquisition? And are there any aspects of esports that you're looking to jump into in the future?
Well, that's kind of you put a big question out there. When it comes to the M&A, it really we have a price formula that we like to use. Doesn't fall within that formula. We walk for more deals than we do, most definitely. Keep in mind, 16 months ago, we were 11 people doing about $100,000 a year in revenue. Now we're 250 people doing $100 million in revenue, and overwhelmingly that came from M&A, as you already pointed out. So, do they bring us revenue? Do they bring us technology? Clearly, the GG Circuit, EGL, Lucky Dino, those brought the tech that came in with it. So those are strategic, both in terms of offense, that we can build off of that, and defense, that if someone wants to duplicate what we're doing, we've already picked up the best assets. Certainly, I believe that. I think you've voiced that you believe it as well. So does it bring us those revenue? Does it bring the players? Does it get us into a market that we currently don't have penetration? Does it open that market up to us, which was Lucky Dino opened up the Finnish market to us. And then when it comes to future acquisitions, because we've already built out fairly comprehensive deck. There's still some room. There's additional pieces, additional mobile apps. There's virtual reality components that can be integrated into the Helix centers that we always keep our eye open for. Media is a constantly evolving sector that we keep our eyes open on. We're in discussions right now with 3 or 4 different companies in the States, Canada, Europe, that are in iGaming or in esports. Fantasy, we do plan to add some fantasy. More, kind of technology that will enhance the user experience. Because stickiness is everything. We want, when somebody comes into an esports center, whether it's Helix or comes online through EGL, they want to set up that account that they could then use across all the different platforms. So that's something we're working on. And yeah, you'll see more of the same, both organic growth, which is signing with the teams, of course, because they push, in the case of the Patriots, 25 million fans. They're going to push them.
Yeah.
We love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to replicate.
Yeah.
But if there's opportunities to acquire, again, unique technology, we want to hear about it. We are very active, very aggressive in the space, and will continue to be so.
Mm-hmm. The pandemic really, in my opinion, really, well, first of all, made esports, put it in the scene, like you said, in the public scene. But it also, a lot of new startups popped up. A lot of talented people are working in esports now, and I think you guys are in a great position if you see something to acquire them. And it's a great time to be in esports, as you probably know.
Agreed.
Yeah,
you're at the almost ground zero of a whole new industry. I believe in 10 years, the esports industry and gaming at large will be the size of the sports industry. That's $1 trillion business. That's what I believe. Some people think I'm crazy, but we'll see.
I don't. I personally do not think you're crazy. I think a lot of our viewers are with you on that claim right there. I had one more question. What was it? Oh, fiscal year 2022. You've raised guidance after your latest acquisition with Bethard. Can you tell our viewers what you're expecting with 2022? Just how your business is going overall this year and where you're expecting the growth to come from next year.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, we raised our guidance between 100 to 105 million, and that was, in large part to the 30 million fusion revenue coming from the Bethard transaction. Of that revenue, a bit north of 70 million of that comes from what we would call traditional gaming, which is the casino and sportsbook side. And the 30 million is made up of the VI, EGL, GG Circuit, Helix, sort of all the other components, which are most of the esports components, make up the smaller piece of it currently, because it's a younger industry. We have not calculated in to that figure anything on LandDuel. And LandDuel, I personally believe, is going to be a major driver for us, because I think that's a product that will definitely appeal to the gaming community at large. It's one-on-one. Everybody likes to, and it's not, you don't have to bet $1,000. You can bet $1. Lots of micro bets, $1, $2, $5, $10 matches. And I think as we roll that out, because that's not a gambling product, that does not need to be in a licensed facility. That's a betting product. So it's over 18 in the jurisdictions where it's allowed. That's, I believe, 41 states will allow it. And with GG Circuits, 1,000 facilities and 2 million users, we can push it pretty quick. So that's not calculated into that figure. So we believe we've been conservative on that. We only calculated in a couple million for VI, and VI's already doing 1.3 million, and that's before we even launched in New Jersey. The cryptocurrency, the first 60 days we did $250,000 cryptocurrency mining, and that's only with 20% of the GG Circuit infrastructure, being brought onto it. So that has substantial potential for growth. So we feel confident we'll meet those numbers. And then again, if we acquire another company, we will revise that guidance. And if we get to January after having 3 or 4 months of LandDuel and we see that this thing's going to be a huge generator, we will adjust guidance accordingly. But we feel very comfortable sticking with that between 100 and 105 at this point in time.
And I just would want to tell the viewers to look at the market cap of your company when you're saying that. It's only, I think you had a big bump today, but I think it's only at 180 million, and you're projecting 105, 110 million dollars in revenue next year. So it's a pretty cool opportunity. And I probably should say this right now. I am a shareholder. I will disclose that to everybody. I really believe in the company, and I'm pretty excited for the years to come.
I appreciate that. Thanks for your support. And yeah, it is a bit frustrating, as you can imagine, sitting in my seat. But yeah, we're sitting just below 2 times multiple. The average in our sector, I believe, is 10 time multiple. There are companies out there. I'll name one. eBet has a 1,600 time multiple. They do about 160,000, which is less than we do in cryptocurrency mining.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a higher market cap than we do. So sometimes it's a bit of a mystery. To me, maybe I should go hire their IR company. I don't want to throw that out.
No.
But I think we spent most of our time building this infrastructure. Now we've got to dedicate some of our time to making sure the market understands our story. And that's, interviews like this, Colby, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. This helps us get our message out there to people so they can understand that this is probably the best value proposition in the space.
I would personally agree with that. And I don't think you guys have gotten a lot of credit in a lot of places yet, and I think it's coming because I know Scales got a lot of credit for an NFL partnership where they weren't really doing that much with them, and that caused the stock price to go crazy. And I know eBet, I looked into them, and they don't have licenses in the U.S. yet, and I don't even think they've started the process. So
they have a license to cure a symbol.
Yeah. So
we used to have one. We dropped it because it was an impediment to business.
Yeah. So I think that's coming. I want to be respectful of your time, so I got one more question for you. Will we see you playing in any tournaments for any of the sports teams in the coming year?
Actually, the game that I liked to play the most and played most frequently was World of Tanks. And then when we got into the IPO, oftentimes my wife would come down at 1 o'clock. What the hell are you doing? You got a bank call at 7 in the morning. So I have to admit I haven't played, but I'm going out with my son this week, and we're going to get a new PlayStation, and I got to brush up my Call of Duty. I'm going to have a go at it.
Okay, that's good to hear. Well, our community really appreciates you coming on and talking to us today, and we really appreciate your time to come out, and we're really excited for your company. I think there's going to be really good things to come for you guys.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, Colby. I appreciate it.
Thank you.